day viewers, welcome to another edition of the State of Nation with Tribune TV, a program that discusses, analyzes and evaluates pertinent issues affecting the nations and our economy. I am Temitope Adigui, and on today's edition we will be talking about the nation's economy and also the education sector. And I won't be doing this alone. I have with me in the studio a political analyst. But before I introduce my guest today, let's go on a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, viewers. Like I said, with me today in the studio is a political analyst. He is Dr. Abiodun Awolaja. You're welcome to the studio.
It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, so like I said, we will be discussing about the nation's economy. Recent update says that Nigeria spent 35 billion, over 35 billion, in just 4 months to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. What do you have to say about that, sir?
Well, the pandemic came like a thief in the night. It was not only government, but also individuals, organizations, In fact, the whole world was affected, by this pandemic. But you see, the pandemic also gave rise to doing things in the same way we have done them over the years. If the government claims to have spent 40 billion, 35 billion, it ought to explain to us, to give us an account of how this money was disbursed, because already some people are already saying that we have the Koro billionaires. The government needs to come out and gives us yes, we thank the government for all the efforts it has made to combat the pandemic, both at the national and the state level. But then we also need transparency. We need to know how this money was spent. We need to have the detail, the specific details. Actually,
on Tuesday, the health minister Elrufai said that 400,000 naira was spent on a single COVID-19 patient. How is that possible?
There are conflicting reports, details. At a point, the federal government, the agency of the federal government, claimed to be conducting the test for 10,000. You found the Lagos State government saying that, it cost us 50,000, to do the COVID-19 test. Again, it all boils down to transparency. The government needs to tell us, after all, it's supposed to be our money. We thank them, really. We appreciate them for all the efforts, they have made to ensure that the pandemic, is contained, and we appreciate that. Because we must say that we appreciate, like I said, it came as a thief in the night. Nobody knew that we were going to have anything like, did you know? Nobody knew. So we appreciate them for all that. But the question boils down to transparency. We need to have the details so that we can make informed.
All right. So speaking about the fuel subsidy that was removed by the federal government, says that 60% of the economy actually is affected to some extent, and bringing it down to the 35 billion naira that was spent on COVID-19, it's kind of not really straightforward. Why is it that? Where did they get that amount of money? We heard not quite long about Chinese loan, now to IMF and World Bank planning to take over Nigerians' economy as a result of this. I think everything is interwoven.
Yes, I'm also probably as confused, or at least as inquisitive, as you are, about all of this. Remember that during the lockdown, the federal government, in fact, claimed to be feeding our children, our children in primary school. Okay, the school feeding program was continued, despite the fact that the pupils who are supposed to be the beneficiaries of the program were not in school. The government claimed to have spent billions, on that also. All right, now about IMF taking over our economy. That is a question of sincerity. Why Nigerians will ask questions is this. Before this present administration came to power, most of the leading lights in the administration now, people like President Muhammadu Buhari, Chief Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and all that, said that the fuel subsidy regime was a fraud. In short, that subsidy did not exist. If you recall, was it in January 2012 that we had the Occupy Nigeria protests, across the country? So the information that these people gave then was that the subsidy regime thing is all about fraud, that it doesn't exist. So now when they came to power, they changed tune. In fact, I recall that time people they were saying that we should kill corruption, not Nigerians. So what has changed now? It is a time of misery for the majority, of Nigerians who are who were already, in harrowing, poverty before even this COVID-19 came. And now that the government came up to say, okay, we pay more for fuel, we pay more for electricity, we pay more, even the interest on savings account was reduced, the review downwards. Okay, that shows that it's a time of misery for Nigerians. So the government, to me, is not very sincere. Okay, if subsidy did not exist in 2012, why should it exist now?
Speaking about IMF and World Bank, should Nigerians be scared if the economy is being taken over by the World Bank and the international?
Well, they should. Fund? I really am pro private sector driven, business. Okay, I believe that the government should provide a clement environment for the private sector to thrive. That government's involvement in business should be limited. But then the thing is this: we ought to have homegrown or indigenous ways, of managing our economy and ensuring that we have what if Awolowo used to call the life more abundant, for our people. You recall that a governor the former governor of Imo State, I've kind of forgotten his name now, the immediate past governor of Imo, he talked about he created a ministry of happiness, and I recall saying at that time that the entire edifice of government is supposed to be a ministry of happiness. Government is supposed to make us happy. Now, if the IMF prescriptions are things that are going to make you and I happy, let the government consider, and do them. But you see, it is a time of misery for Nigerians, really. It's a time of misery. The question is sincerity. Sincerity. You told us that subsidy did not exist, that it was a fraud. Now you are saying that you are now removing the same subsidy, that did not exist. That we are not supposed to pay more for power. Meanwhile, even in the United States, I learned last week that the state governments also kind of subsidize fuel consumption. I was not aware of that. I learned that only last week, that the government kind of subsidized the fuel consumption. For Americans.
It's obvious that this topic cannot be exhausted in just one sitting. So we'll just go over to our next topic, which is on ASU. Information came out and says that ASU said it's not yet ripe for students to reopen school as a result of COVID-19, and also because federal government is yet to fulfill their promises. So here's my question: is ASU not resuming because of COVID-19, or because federal government has not paid them up?
Like politicians, like academia, the government is not sincere. ASU itself is not sincere. If you say, the curve has not been flattened, COVID-19 is still there. So does it mean that, for instance, if we still have cases in 5 years to come, we should all stay at home? Meanwhile, there was a study in Ogun State that I became aware of sometime last month that showed that the secondary school students, a lot of the females had gotten pregnant, and a lot of the males were also involved, in crime, because they had stayed for too long at all. Okay, I think the university should reopen. You see, ASU has only taken a position because of the agreement it had with the federal government. I'm not entirely knocking. I'm not saying that ASU is entirely right and the federal government is wrong. I'm saying that both are wrong and both sides are insincere. For instance, there were details in that agreement that ASU always talks about. Now, that no decent government, no right-wing government should have approved. Okay, people just signed, that agreement, and it exploded.
Thank you very much, Doctor. We still have a lot to
in their face.
About. Yes, so we'll pick it up again from next week. All right, viewers, thank you for joining us on today's episode or today's edition on the State of Nation. Don't forget to follow us, like us. We'll continue next week. Once again, I'm Temitope Adebuyi. Enjoy the rest of the week.